Καλησπέρα.
Να σας πω εδώ...
That's about it, I'll be honest.
Να σας πω εδώ ότι πρόκειται για έναν πάρα πολύ απλό άνθρωπο. I will talk also in Greek for some words. Έναν πάρα πολύ απλό άνθρωπο, ο οποίος από την ώρα που κατέβηκε στο αεροδρόμιο άρχισε να αναρωτιέται πόσο όμορφο είναι το μέρος, τι γίνεται με το κλίμα, δηλαδή δεν είναι τίποτα τυχαίο σε αυτή τη ζωή και τον ευχαριστούμε θερμά. Λοιπόν, today, as friends, partners and concerned citizens, we came together on the captivating May Mask, a role model woman who came to Greece and shared unique moments and experiences from her exciting life. The relationships built with Dr. May Mask, as I told you before, resulted in her loving and bonding with Greece, visiting in often and us having the honor with our organizing company, Update Production, to translate her book, is outstairs, which has already been published in 100 countries into Greek. Last year's conference was highly successful, setting the bar high for the next ones. So this year, in our Santorini, in the wonderful and hospitable Peter Nomikos Conference Center, we have invited a man who leads by example. When we started discussing with the Creative Artist Agency, with the agency that collaborate for the change in our country and worldwide regarding the environment, floods, wildfires, loss of human lives, and vast areas of land with only one culprit, man. Nature knows how to survive. It succeeds and will always manage to rise from its ashes. But I wonder if there will be a place for man on our planet and how tomorrow will be for our children, Mr. Rothschild. With all these questions unanswered, only one person came to our mind as this year's guest of honor. If you are wondering how we choose to discuss climate change at a tourism conference, then I would like to inform you that this year in our country, we saw great difference and fluctuations regarding the choice made by tourists depending on the general climate conditions, energy issues, the economic return of a tourist area, and of course, the memories and experience created by the huge tourism industry. So, it is with great pride that we welcome our guest of honor this year, David the Rothschild. How is the pronunciation?
David's great. You can stick with David. It's way easier. Way easier.
Yes, and more easier.
More
exactly.
relaxed. We're in Santorini.
That's what I tell you before.
Everyone's...
A man who, in the face of advertising, has chosen to forge his own path towards a brighter future, offering a unique perspective on climate change. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Καλώς ήρθες στην Ελλάδα, στη Σαντορίνη. I hope you love our country and let it hold a special place in your heart, similar to the one we have for you. So, how did this awareness journey about climate change start for you? After all, you are known for being a climate hero.
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say good evening. I'll try and speak slowly because I tend to speak too quickly, I'm told often. Probably because I don't like sitting still. So you have me here now, which is great. But I always think it's important to thank all the people that we don't see in a room, right? The people who made you arrive here, the people who organized this. So thank you to all the people behind the scenes who made it possible for you all to be here tonight and for us to share this space together. Thank you for inviting me. Everyone else was busy. I was the only one who was free.
No, it's not right.
So they got to the bottom of the list and they said, okay, that guy.
You know it's not true.
No, I know, I'm teasing you. I hope it's not true. It might be though. We don't know. We'll never know.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, keep me guessing. That's important. But the conversation...
It's the best decision. I am sure about that.
The conversation about climate. It's interesting conversation. I've been doing this for 20 years. 20 or more years ago. When I first started this conversation, we talked about the concept of climate change, right? That word, climate change. And now it's pretty evident, no matter where you live on this planet, our climate has changed. And there's a distinction between climate change, because our climate changes every day, right? We have seasons somewhat still, right? But the climate has distinctly changed. And that, I think, is where I was on my way here today looking out at this beautiful surrounding that we're all gathered in, you know, and you can't help but feel something hit you in your soul when you drive up over the top and you look out over the ocean. We are creatures of the ocean. We crawl from the ocean. We have salt in our blood. So when you see the ocean and you feel something intrinsically deeper, that is why. And so when you think about this planet that we're on, and you look at that curvature of the ocean, and you look out and you see that horizon, while it might feel endless, and it might feel that it was infinite, goes on and on and on, is in fact obviously very fragile and very close. That horizon is very close. Oops. And fragile. Like that. And I think when I think about, you know, this planet and where we are, and I was saying, you know, as we were on the way here, you know, it's incredible to me, you know, like we can dive into that ocean and almost grab a fish. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, you could probably grab a fish. Now maybe there's not so many. You can pick a berry from a tree. You can take honey from bees. You can sit on a chair and be warmed by a star. A little bit further away and we would freeze. A little bit closer and we would burn. Think about that. And it just blows my mind how extraordinary and how precious this planet is. And so when I hear phrases like climate hero, it's very, you know, for the ego, you go, great, well, whatever. We're all climate heroes because we're all spaceship, you know, we're all these passengers on spaceship Earth. So each of you are a hero in your field, in your household, in your community, in your peer group of how we fly this spaceship. That's how I think about it. I think about it, you know, I mean, obviously you had Elon's mother here. And Elon is a very smart man. But, there's always a but, I think this is a very precious planet. And I think it might be exciting because in humanity we always want to explore what's next. But I also think it's very important to look after this precious planet that we live on, this spaceship that we are on. And while we might think about Mars and we might think about all those beautiful places out there, your head blows up. You can't breathe any oxygen. You can't find bees yet.
For the moment.
Yet. So I think about it that way. So anyway, that's a long-winded story, but you know, I would say that when you come somewhere like this where it's very raw and it's from nature, we're sitting on the remnants of a volcano, it hits you at a very different level. So thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is all ours, and I hope tomorrow we have the opportunity to see volcano by the boat. We'll see by the weather. Maybe we can make a short explore also. You have also a tequila who's lost explore, a tequila drink. But then I will talk about that after. So, you are one of the few people who have crossed Antarctica.
That's correct. Yes.
What prompted you to do this? Why?
I could give you there's a few stories.
Yes.
Antarctica was back in 2004. Has anybody been to Antarctica?
Anybody to Antarctica? Anybody?
No one.
For the moment.
It's great.
Last
So
year, we organized the conference to Antarctica.
in Antarctica.
Yes,
Okay, next year we're going to we'll be.
Δεν έχετε ξενοδοχεία, κύριε Λόπουλη.
Antarctica is one of these extraordinary places, right? I mean, I'm the only person in the room who's been to Antarctica. Think about that.
Yes, and also one of the 4th in the world.
But what that means is, hello, it means I could tell you anything I want about Antarctica. I could tell you that I fought monsters as high as this ceiling. I can tell you that I managed to jump over crevasses as wide as this room. Right? I can tell you how inhospitable it was and how brave I am and how you're not brave. None of you are brave. I can lie. The most beautiful place, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And for so long, this, this, I can never say the word, inhospitable place, my dyslexia coming in, was used, I think, as a story of daring do. Men losing their fingers, people not coming back. It was man versus nature. And if you look at most of our programming on television, right, if you look at who reads National Geographic or sees it on their TV or Discovery Channel, it's always man versus nature. Do you notice this? Shark Week is Shark Month. Shark Month is now, every time you go in the ocean, you're going to get eaten by a shark. You know, that's what people think. It's always man versus nature. I was very fortunate. I got invited to come on an expedition to Antarctica. And someone asked me, what was your skill to be on that trip? And I kind of lied. Because in my head, I thought, how hard can it be? Maybe youthful naivety. How hard could it be? I'm walking on skis. It's just walking. Can't be that hard. But the feeling of this place is enormous. It makes you feel very small. I spent 110 days crossing Antarctica. From one side of the continent to the other. And then I thought I could come back and I could have a conversation with you and say, oh, look at me, I'm man versus nature. I conquered Antarctica. No way. No way. Antarctica is this endless horizon that makes you feel very small. And I quickly realized after that trip that it wasn't man versus nature, but man learning with nature. Change the dynamic of the conversation. What can we learn from this environment? What can we take away from this environment? Not what can we, put our ego onto it and say, I was this and this, Because the continent of Antarctica is infinitely interesting. Just skiing across it is a little story that can get a bit boring after a while. But when you look at the Antarctic continent and you look at what it does and you look at the glaciers, it's extraordinary. It's a time capsule, and we need it. And we're losing. Our planet is warming, no matter which way you look at it. The glaciers are retreating, no matter which way you look at it. We have to have these parts of our planet, the north and the south, to regulate temperature on our planet. So when you come back from an environment like that, the most important thing, and for all the things that I've managed to do, I think, is to try and, if you're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go into these environments, then you have a responsibility, I believe, to try and communicate their splendor and their majesty and their wonder. And that, I think, is the responsibility of anyone in the environmental space. And as an environmentalist, sometimes called an environmentalist, sometimes called an explorer, I can't do one-arm push-ups, I promise you. I can't do all that stuff. But as an environmentalist, I often say that I failed, right? Because I've been telling the same story for 20 years. All of us have. And the story that we tell sometimes is not a story that maybe inspires people to act. Because a lot of the time when we think about the stories, it's always what's lost, what's wrong, versus what's possible. Nature is so beautiful and resilient. There's so much more in it from a possibility standpoint. That, I think, is where it becomes very exciting. That's where, for me, my adventures and expeditions are always about, awe and wonder, and how do we connect with nature in that way.
What do you witness that is disappointing about the future of our planet? What do you witness that is disappointed about the future of our planet?
Oh, it's a big question. The future of our planet.
I speak only French, and my pronunciation is
perfect.
not the best, but I make efforts to do that. This is the problem.
Future.
That's why the Rothschild, I have another pronunciation. It's Rothschild.
But the future, right? If anybody tells you that they know the future, the only people who predict the future and get it right are the climate scientists. If you go back 20 years and you read the IPCC's reports, or you go back and you read the reports that were put out from the World Meteorological Organization, or you go back to any of those reports, and you look at what they said was going to be happening now, it's pretty spot on. I mean, it's incredible. If I said to anybody in this room 10 years ago, standing in front of a camera doing a weird dance on TikTok would get you millions of views and you would be popular, people go, what are you talking about? Right? Think about the mobile phone in your hand, how it's changed your life. Nobody predicted that. No one. The rate in which it's changing. When you look at the world today and you look at AI, yes, and you look at what that is, it's frightening. Because we have a Neanderthal brain and we have archaic institutions and we have godlike technology. And that equation doesn't necessarily end up in a good place. So I think for me, the future is today. When I think about what we do, we are in the future. We have the capability to harness the sun to power us in cars that are autonomous and can drive by themselves. We have all the solutions to every single problem that we face today. Every single thing that we see as a problem, we have a solution. That's amazing. We're living at this incredible age of information, access to information, access to solutions, access to technologies. We have everything. The problem is self-interest. And it starts with ourselves, right? And so much of what we do on a daily basis is primal. It's in our Neanderthal brain. It's very primal, survival. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. How do we survive? What do I need to survive to provide for my immediate needs, for myself or my family or my community? What do I need? And then once maybe I can get my head up, then I can maybe possibly think about my neighbor or a country somewhere else that I've never been to that I'm told I should care about. It's very hard for us sometimes to think with expanded self-interest. And so I think it's, we have this human condition that we wrestle with on a daily basis. And I hope that in a world that feels more fragmented today than ever before, we're on the age, we're in an age where there is a collapse of truth. Yeah. Where do we get our information from? I don't trust you now for some reason. I used to trust you, but now I shouldn't. Why? And when we think about what's needed to live on this planet sustainably, it's collaboration. Nature has this inbuilt biodiversity. Everything has a role and a purpose and a place. It works together. And so as we move into an era of fear, fragmentation, nationalization, we have to look at each other and say, is that the path that is going to help us to become more sustainable, to connect to each other? We need to look at each other as humans and all the other species as people that share this planet with us and say, actually, I trust you because you have the same needs, the same desires. Let's work together to solve some of these problems. And that, I think, is where today we have the opportunity at an individual level, people in the room who maybe come from an organization or a group or a business that is bringing people in to your space. You have a space to educate and inspire. And it's a very intimate space. You go into a hotel room and you touch things and you trust that space to keep you safe. And I think you have a lot of skill sets to have that audience. When you think about tourism and you think about luxury tourism, what does that mean? What luxury to me, like what does it mean to you, right?
The upper class tourism, not the luxury by the expensive.
No.
The clean water, the beautiful sea, the good...
Access to nature.
Yes, exactly.
Which should be equitable.
Yes. All these little things.
Yeah.
So,
you don't get, I don't do short answers, sorry.
No, I like it. We prefer it.
Sorry.
It's very good.
Everyone having fun? No? They're like, well, it's Saturday night in Santorini. Time for a drink. Everyone's like, okay, come on, we've been here all day.
After.
No, I know.
We'll have time for that. The melting of the glaciers and the greenhouse effect are issues we are all concerned about. We talked about that before. We were all impressed by the Plastiki, a boat constructed from thousands of plastic bottles, which is also a message about how plastic harms our environment. Is there something that discouraged you when you started these public awareness struggles?
Has anybody in the room heard of Plastiki? A few people. Okay. Maybe I'll start a little bit further back then. So in 2006, I was reading a report that the UN had put out about plastic in our ocean. It was actually about biodiversity in the high seas. And I read this quote that said there was 46,000 items of marine debris on or below every square mile of our ocean. And I was like, this must be a typo. They must have got this wrong. There can't be 46,000 pieces on every square mile of our ocean. So I contacted UN Environment, and I said, I think you made a mistake in one of your reports. I just want to clarify, and we had a conversation, and they said, if I'm completely honest, we think it's an underestimation of the amount of plastic in our ocean. We don't know. And I was like, we don't know? No, we don't know. There was no funding, there was no research, there was no awareness. And this in my brain, I was like, wow, okay. I had just tried to ski from Russia to Canada about 6 months earlier. I went from one side all the way across the Arctic Ocean with 16 dogs, living in the Arctic, on the Arctic ice with these dogs. I came back, have a meal, a warm shower. No shower for 100 days. So you can imagine, it's amazing. In the ice cold, where bacteria doesn't live, so it's great. You don't smell, but as soon as you get into... Now everyone's like, oh, take a shower. Take a shower. So a few showers later, a nice beer and a nice warm bed, and you're feeling refreshed, and people ask you how your journey was, and I was like, talking about myself as if I felt like somebody else. I felt like I was talking about somebody else. I was like, wow, I'm not, how is the Arctic? Is it melting? Is it this? Is it that? And I remember people saying to me, yeah, but the climate's always changed. You've lived, and I was thinking, no, I promise you, I'm not a scientist, but I was sitting at the North Pole in a pair of long johns and nothing else cooking in my tent. It was hot. That's wrong. So then after you've had that shower and the nice thing and you get back and you start thinking what would be next, I read this report and I think, plastic. It's an undeniable human fingerprint. The modern era, 1950s, spun out of the war machine, but it was Bakelite, and Bakelite then became modern plastics, and it's something that we all are addicted to. We all use plastic every single day, no matter how good we are, no matter what we do in our lives. And I want to say something, plastic is not the enemy. It's how we design and how we dispose and how we reuse. I think it's really important to understand that plastics isn't the problem. The bigger conversation over a drink is our convenience culture and disposability. That is the plastics problem. So I start reading this report and I think, how can I raise awareness about plastics in our ocean? What could I do to try and make this an interesting story? And so I go out and I take 12,500 plastic bottles from the waste stream in San Francisco. I build a boat and I sail it across the Pacific from San Francisco to Sydney. So I spent 4 months on the Pacific Ocean, sailing, bobbing around, message in a bottle, on a bottle. So that is Plastiki, that in case anybody was wondering what we were talking about. And it was an incredible voyage of discovery. I had no idea if it was going to work. We garnered over 1 billion media impressions and all this thing. And the only reason why I think that happened was because people were convinced, they're like, look at this guy, he's definitely dying. You know, they're like, look at this guy. He's sitting here, he's going to build a boat out of plastic bottles. Okay, great, welcome. Come sit down and tell us all about it. And then they're like, let's wait until he's halfway across the Pacific, you know, calling for help. But luckily I made it, you know. I mean, I have to say it was an incredible voyage of discovery. And I learned a lot in this project. It took me 10 years, really, from, well, not 10 years. It took from 2006 to 2010, 4 years of innovation and building. And then from 2010 until now, I look at where that conversation has gone. And for all of our awareness around plastic and for all of the awareness that we have, we're still consuming more plastic and we're still throwing away more plastic and we're not recycling. And on an island like Santorini, which is reliant on, you know, there's heavy salt in your water and you have to drink bottled water, so you have a problem with waste, right? It's there, everyone knows it, and it's not just here, it's everywhere, right? These are the issues that we face, but these are the issues that we can solve. And so for me, it was about showcasing solutions. Thank you very much.
We don't have plastic bottles, you see?
No. You know, but it's like...
Not for you, for everybody.
But listen, I drank a plastic bottle on the way here. Like, that's what you do. Like, that's the... like, let's get... if we're not real with the conversation, as I say, plastic isn't the enemy, but how do we reuse? How do we create the right environment in the hotel room or in the hotel space? Right? So I think, you know, it was a project that brought opportunity around design and innovation. And I think there's a huge possibility around plastics. I think there's something very, you know, like it's a material that can be reused in a very smart way. But if we're designing just for disposability and we use it in really silly ways, then we're getting to a point where no matter where you go in the world, you're going to see these fingerprints. And if you're selling a hotel room on a beautiful beach, but that beautiful beach is covered in lighters and cigarette butts and caps and plastic bags, it becomes complicated. And what do? We just sweep it away and we hope that it doesn't wash up on our beach again, or the tide is, you know? And so it's the responsibility as operators to try and educate and inspire people to think differently.
Let me ask you something. Your last name brings to mind one of the most financially prominent families in the world. How did you choose environmental awareness instead of the business world, as others may have done?
You know, I think in life you are what you do,
yes,
not what you're called.
Right.
And that was the principle that I grew up in my household. You know, you have a great last name. It can open doors, it can close doors, but if you spend your whole time looking at doors, you might just walk into one, right? You know, at the end of the day, we're all the same. We all have the same desires, the same needs, the same passion. And I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household that gave me space to think and the opportunity to look at my position and say, okay, what can I do that is going to be of impact? And selfishly, I love nature. You know, I'm a card-carrying hippie, hands down, you know. I love the ocean. I love spending time in nature. I made it my career. For 20 years, I've been exploring the natural environment and looking at the intersection of humans and nature. You know, we are nature, right? We literally are nature. And think about it, when you look at our bodies and you look at the systems on our planet, our lungs are the Amazon and the old-growth rainforests. And when those forests disappear, what happens? We notice a huge rise in respiratory disorders and allergies in kids and ourselves and adults. Our soil in our gut, our microbiome, is the soil where we grow all our food. As we move from the agrarian agriculture into industrial agriculture and the industrial agricultural machine, and we started to denature our soil, and we made nature produce more than it could sustain, and we gave it artificial stimulants to do that, we started to see food being denatured, and we start to see problems with our gut, and we see gut health problems. As we see our oceans slow down and the ocean conveyor belts, and we see the problems we have in our ocean, we see that mimicked in what is the ocean in our body? Is our cardiovascular system, right? We are nature, and you can go into it. I mean, you know, every part of us is mimicked. So if we get rid of forests, we're going to have respiratory disorders. If we denature our soil, we're going to have gut problems. If we slow down our oceans, we're going to have cardiovascular problems, and so on. And so for me, how do we have impact? And that comes back to just you as an individual, not what you're called, but what you do. And I think that's always been very important to me.
Do you think that we have time to save our planet? Oh, the countdown has begun?
I think the countdown has definitely begun. I think we'd be very naive to think that it hasn't begun. Our planet is changed. How we live on this planet is changing rapidly at a much faster pace than anybody, any scientist. So many of the scientists that I speak to and have spoken to over the years, a lot of them, out of fear of losing funding, think about that, out of fear of losing funding, never wanted to sound alarmist. They never wanted to say this could be a catastrophe. Think about COP. Has anybody here been to a COP gathering? We hear about it, right? You know, COP 1, COP 2, COP 3. We're on COP 29 this year. Right, in Azerbaijan, COP29. And what are we doing in that room? We're sitting around in the room going, can I continue to pollute? And if so, how much can I pollute and for how long? Think about that. We are negotiating with ourselves on how long we can continue to pollute for. That's effectively what that gathering is. We're sitting there, and it's now become effectively a World Trade Organization event, because I say to you, well, I'll buy your pollution if you can take my grain, and I'll take, well, you can't take his grain, but we'll take his grain, you know, and we negotiate, and it's all around pollution. And this is where I come back and I say, the time for talking is over. Humans have had an undeniable impact on this planet. Nature is our life support system. Each and every one of us makes a decision with how we purchase products, how we move around the planet, how we vote, how we lead our communities. We have a choice, and that choice is easy. We want a world where we can breathe clean air. We want a world with stability, right? If we throw a ton of chemistry in the atmosphere, which is what we've done, you create instability. So we want stability. We want fresh water. We want produce that we can eat that doesn't poison us. We want air that we can breathe that doesn't poison us. All of these things are achievable today with solutions we have. So in a nutshell, I would say I'm an optimistic pessimist. You know? I think you have to be a realist. I think we are beyond 2 degrees of warming. And if you know anything about chemistry, just 1 degree of warming is an enormous amount, right? The difference between ice and water, or water and gas. And that's a huge impact. And how do we adapt to that? And it sounds scary, but it's an opportunity to do things differently. And I think that is where we must anchor our possibility of living differently, right? And I think we have that capability, that human potential. But I think it's often, you know, it's very hard to plan for the long term when we've created a system globally of short-termism. How do you deal with long-termism when our political cycles and our business cycles are ever shorter? Because we won't remember the elected leader that year and that month, but we will notice the rising sea level, and we will notice the change in our climate, and we will notice that dirty air, and we will notice our inability to live on this planet. And that, to me, is where, you know, we have to be real, and we need leadership and events and conversations, and thank you for bringing us here to have a conversation. And to me, the essence of luxury is accessibility to nature, and having that communication and being able to look at it as something that's not a luxury but an essential to all of us.
Yes. How do do you think can we promote environmental education and raise awareness among our children? We have so many children here. How did you think about that?
I think we need to include them in the conversation.
Yes.
You know, like, you can grow old, but you can remain immature indefinitely. You know what I mean? Like, if I walk into this room right now and I say, who can sing? Who can sing? Anyone sing in here? Okay, we've got one hand, two hands. Who can dance? Come on, you're Greek, you've all got to dance. No. Who can draw? Who's an artist? Okay. If I walk into a classroom,
We don't have so many arts here.
and if I walked into a classroom of young kids and I said to them, who can sing, who can dance, who can draw, everybody would put their hand up immediately. So what does this tell you? As we get older, we become stiff and rigid and full of fear. Often the things get taught out of us. That playfulness, right? Play. Play is a fundamental thing of what makes us human. It's one of those things that as we grow older, we're told, don't touch this, don't do that, don't put that down, you know? Sit still, right? What's under the chair? No, don't look under it. We all, you know, we get rigid. And so we need to include into the conversation youth and the elderly. We have to know where we've been to understand where we need to go. We can't alienate. We are living in an age of loneliness. The pandemic that's going around the world is loneliness. People get old and we put them away. I live in America, you put them in a home. Mom's getting old, put her away. We don't want to see her, put her in a home, right? We don't listen to the stories of where we've come from and where we have been. We need those stories, but we need the youthfulness and the enthusiasm and the unbridled energy of young kids. But the big boogeyman in the room for all of this, myself included, right? I'm going to pull it out of my pocket. I'm not going to, but my phone, right? Who has a phone? Everybody. I mean, there's a few people in here who are just like either asleep or liars. Who has a phone? Everybody has a phone. What is the first thing you look at in the morning? Your phone.
Yes.
What is the last thing you look at night?
The phone.
Your phone.
Yes.
Who won? The phone. Right? We're hyper distracted. We don't have time for conversations. We don't have time to slow down. We're in an age of instantaneous gratification. We're in an age where everything is so fast, quickly, now. Our attention spans have gone from being very long and wide and broad and to very narrow. An algorithm gives us exactly what we think we need, right? When we may not need it, but that's what the algorithm has deduced from the way that we swipe up or swipe left. If you have a phone, you're giving away all of your information. It knows more about you than you know about yourself. Hyper distraction, right? And so that is a tool that is using us. We need to regain that tool as a tool that works for us. And use that because it's not all negative. We can now take beautiful photographs and have the age of transparency. We've seen revolutions started from phones. We've seen communication with communities across the globe, being able to talk to each other and share ideas, you know? So there's possibility and hope in all the negativity, but we have to be able to play. We have to have youth in the conversation, not take ourselves so seriously. As we become older, we're so serious. I mean, I'm talking for myself, by the way. I'm sure everyone here is really silly and having fun. But we are, right? Like, come on. Like, no.
And we have so many things to learn from the kids, from the children.
So much so, because it's like, as I say, right? Like, as you get older, I think what happens is you actually become narrower. You get known for something. And someone says, oh, I know you for this thing. And so your opportunity to break those comfort zones and move into different areas of interest is often narrowed down. And actually what we need in today's day and age is much more of an interrelated, conversations from all different places coming together. But it's so hard, right? Because we're all so busy. But I think survival on this planet living on this planet, clean air, clean water, access to food, equitable access to nature, not having to, deal with all of these issues. It should not be something that we think about afterwards. It should be essential, because without nature we have no stock market, no hotel, no business.
So we are in Santorini, an island that has become world famous for its eerie beauty, which was created after a volcano eruption. This destruction, on the other hand, created a unique landscape that made Santorini a global tourism brand. Do you think there may be a day after a natural disaster when it will integrate into the natural and residential environment?
Wow.
Environment.
I did think about something on the way here as an idea, and I don't know if there's anybody in the room who has that, that thing, but the power to do this. But I was thinking about it. So Santorini is, it's very quickly you look it up online. You see, what is Santorini known for, right? Yes. White houses, your amazing tomatoes. You've got these little funky tomatoes, that do good things, make it very sweet. Your fava beans, you have, and the sunset, the light, right? Now we live in a world of armchair travelers, right? We're all, and people are coming here in thousands, right? Too many is what I hear, too many people. How do we stop too many people? But then it's like, that's the hand that feeds us. But how do we, it's a disbalance. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. You saw it this summer in Barcelona, tourists getting sprayed with water. Was it the tourists' fault? Right? No, they want to go and travel, they want to see. After, dare I say it, that period of time when we were all stuck down and we weren't allowed to move, and actually we got to enjoy the places that were right in front of us again and have a moment of, oh, this is ours, this is what makes things beautiful. And then everything's back with a vengeance. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking about who owns that image of the sunset in Santorini? The person who snaps it? Does Santorini own that? Imagine if there was a royalty. Imagine you said, okay, if you come to Santorini and you take a photograph of that sunset, you pay a royalty to nature, to the island. So you can post it, because it will encourage people to come here, but maybe the sun gets a royalty. Because if it was Brad Pitt, maybe Brad Pitt would get paid something by a brand. We see it the whole time, right? Think about how many Cartier ads you see with a snow leopard. I wonder if Cartier's ever given anything to the snow leopard. But if it was Brad Pitt, they would give Brad Pitt something, wouldn't they? And I was thinking about that as I was coming here, all these now photographs of this beautiful island that take something away from this island. They share something beautiful. I mean, it used to be a postcard and it would be sent around the world, and you would then desire to travel, and maybe it took you days to get here. And then it became hours, and then it became minutes. And then it was like, I don't even need to go there because I can see it and experience it. And maybe I put a goggles on my head, and then I can really be in Santorini without ever being there, and then I can go back to my world. So the nature of travel and the nature of that ownership of a place is changing dramatically in how we view it. And then with the nature of AI, it doesn't matter if it's cloudy anymore. I can just create the perfect sunset. I came and the sun was there was no sunset tonight for me. Oh well, I can go into an app and I can make the sunset there, and I can take a photograph and tell the world I've been there. All from the living room of my home in Los Angeles, And so that's changing, and I think if we're not aware of how that changes, and that essence, I mean, we obviously say, of course, like, I own that photograph, right? Like, I took it, it's mine. Is it yours? I'm sure if you look at actually the terms and conditions of your phone, you probably don't own that photograph. It lives on someone else's server, and you don't actually own it because it was taken on a device that was, the underlying technology was somebody else's. Going on a slight tangent, but it does make me think about, when you have something so beautiful here, how do you make it accessible, but how do you not make it, overrun in a world that wants to, to come and see these places? And it's not just here, it's everywhere. And it's a really big conundrum, I mean, the concept of sustainable travel, and in some way, it's always been antagonistic. People always say to me, I mean, there's always a question. I'm sure someone said, "Did you fly here?" And I'm like, "Yes, I flew here. I did. On a plane, landed in the airport. I did that. Yeah." And everyone's like, "Ha, got ya." There's always that one. They're like, "Ah, got you." And it's like, I live on planet Earth, right? Everyone in this room is a recipient of a world that is now interconnected and independent. We have instant travel, instant food, we can order something on our phone and it arrives in our, we're so connected. How does that change the dynamic of what luxury is? And I think slowness is at the heart of it all. In a world getting faster, I implore you to get slower. Give people late checkouts. Don't hurry them through. But in return, maybe say, "I'll give you a late checkout, but go do something for the community. Come and see a community project. But I'll give you a discount if you help do a beach cleanup." Who would do that? I mean, I don't know 100% of the audience here. I might be getting this wrong. But I mean, if you went into a hotel and they said, because think about this, right? And we've all done it. I've gone, and I hope you don't mind me just coming at you. I don't know how long we have. We've got to keep probably moving. But, you arrive in a hotel. Someone says, I know this happened the other day. I was in Geneva. I work with Breitling. So Breitling, I'm a brand ambassador for Breitling. And I had to do a talk. And I arrived, and they said, "Welcome, Mr. Rothschild. We've upgraded you to a partial lake view." And I thought, "Oh, that's nice. How nice." So I got into my room, pulled back my curtains, and there, just a tiny sliver, tiny sliver, was the lake. I thought, "Oh, look at that, lucky me." I got a lake view, and that would have cost me $200. And had I not been going there and they'd given me the free upgrade, I probably would have gone, "Okay, go on then. Sounds like a better room." And we do that. We sell the ocean view, the ocean villa, the jungle view, right?
Yes.
We do it the whole time, and we pay for it, but we don't go into the jungle because we're intrinsically scared of it. We don't swim in the ocean. How many pools do we see right in front of the ocean, but we don't go in the ocean because we think we'll be eaten by a shark? It's in our DNA. We're like, "Oh my God, if I swim in the ocean." How many people swim in the ocean and still think they're going to get eaten by a shark? I do. Come on, no one else? You get in the ocean, everyone's like, "There are no sharks in the Mediterranean anymore." There are. They're blue sharks. There are sharks here. People do get eaten. Just want you to know that. And then we read about it and we freak out. But more people die from coconuts landing on their head. More people die from vending machines falling on themselves, right? Trying to get out a candy bar that didn't come out. And so we have these swimming pools in front of the ocean, and we have these views of nature, but we don't engage. Imagine if you walked in and said, "I'll give you the best view of nature for free." Okay, what do I have to do? What I'd like you to do is to spend 10 minutes with the local community, 10 minutes out of your holiday. They'll enrich you, and you get this beautiful view, or you can plant something, or you can do something. Anyway, silly idea, but made me think about it.
Do you ever feel like a lonely Don Quixote at a period when, as reality shows, too few people care about nature? Yes.
No.
No.
I'm laughing because I'm like,
You are.
poor you, you're trapped in this room, you can't get away from me. I'll sit here and speak for hours. Clearly, like if you're in my household, everyone runs away from me. They're like, "Oh God, he's speaking again." You paid to be here. I've got you. How long have we got? I'll keep talking for hours.
As a speaker.
No, I mean, I think what's really, sometimes disheartening is that we're having the same conversations 20 years later. I go to the same conferences in the same room with peers and people that I see, and we're having these conversations, and we all go, because does anybody in here hate nature? Right? No one does. Right? when we use the word nature, we're like, okay, that feels good, right? It's a good word, nature. Okay, I can deal with that. I don't hate nature. I love nature. I mean, I have to say I do hate mosquitoes. I'm not into them. They're just annoying. But when we say the word climate change, I can see people's face. Everyone does this, right? It's so energized. It's so politicized. It's, climate change became, it was global warming. It became climate change. And it became energy security, different phrases that make people feel uncomfortable. When you really get back to it, it's nature. That's the bottom line. We are nature. Nature is us. We need to start having conversations that don't politicize, that don't divide, that don't fragment, that don't create fear. We need to look at the awe and wonder in nature. We need to look at the human potential of each other. We need to trust each other. And I think then we start to feel like a community, and you don't feel alone. But we need to not just have these conversations. We need to sort of say, okay, cool, well, we know that who in here likes breathing dirty air? Not me. So cool, so could we look at solving that? Yeah, how? There are solutions, let's enact upon them. So there's a nervous look of like, we gotta hurry up. So it can be lonely, but I think there's a lot of amazing people doing incredible work that I often, I'm blown away by. And I run a program called Rewild Yourself, which is about getting kids into nature and us into nature and rewilding us access to nature, which sounds crazy on an island like this, but actually most people around the world spend less than 20 minutes outside every day. We're spending 7 to 8 hours on our phone in front of a device, inside. And we walk outside for a cigarette. We walk outside to go from a bus to to our office, or to from the car to a restaurant, right? We live a very inside life. And one of the things that I notice in my world, and I've noticed, is that the big thing, the big elephant in the room that no one talks about, is mental health. Yes. Right? Mental health is a massive problem. It's everywhere. Anxiety, depression, it goes on and on and on. And the antidote is nature. It's right in front of us. So anyway, that's a side note.
What is David's dream for the future? David's dream.
I hope that we get it as a species, because there's so much in us, there's so much beauty, and there's so much to live for. Right? It's so special, this planet. The human potential, from the arts, the creativity, the things that we've done as a species is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. We have this prefrontal cortex that gives us an ability to predict the future. Pretty sure, as far as we know, and we don't know a lot about other species, there's not any other species that can predict the future, as far as we know. But we haven't done a lot of looking, so this probably is. I mean, think about like an octopus, for example, changes color. Yeah, it's colorblind. How does it do that? Because it senses and feels color. We can't do that. So there's a lot of things we don't know. But we have this part of our brain that allows us to predict the future. And I hope that we connect to that part that makes us different with many other things. I hope we can connect with that part of our brain and look at the future and bring it back to today and say, I don't want to lose this incredible space, this spaceship that we have, just because we weren't paying attention, just because we thought somebody else was going to deal with it, just because we thought it was someone else's problem or it won't affect me. So I just hope that we take our hyper-distracted minds, and I'm saying that for myself, and we connect it to the possibility today of what's possible, because then we can create a much more equitable, much more harmonious relationship with nature. There is no doubt we have a rocky road ahead because of the way that we've changed the chemistry of our planet. There are certain Pandora's boxes, as we call them, that are open. Does anybody know the game Jenga? Yeah, it's a great game, right? And you stack everything up. I always think we're playing death Jenga, right? That's the way I think about it. And every block is a species or an ecosystem. And every time we remove one of those blocks, the thing gets wobblier. And we know it doesn't go, oh, I'm about to fall over. It just goes, right? And so we have to look at our planet as that delicate game of Jenga, and each one of us is playing a part in what gets pulled out and what gets left alone. And let's look at that analogy and hopefully think about our role in that and how we can not make the whole thing fall down.
That trip you have ever made, and what experiences would you share with us today? You travel so much.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to sort of say what the most important trip is, because every trip you learn something new and you meet new people, and to be able to go out into different parts of the world and be able to spend time learning from others and listening is one of the greatest gifts, you know. And so, you know, I always say for myself that the next expedition is always going to be the important one, because it's a motivator. I've been working on a project for about 10 years, which is quite fun, that I'm in the middle of working on, but it was inspired by a guy who drove around the world over land and sea in an amphibious vehicle. And I became fascinated by this 10 years ago. And so I've been working on this as a project. And that's allowed me and afforded me the opportunity to work with some incredible people and get to travel and go and see great places. And the one thing I can tell you is that wherever you go, no matter how far away from, you know, your humanity or your comfort zone you go, we're all the same. We all want the same things. We all want to be seen. We all want to feel safe. We all want to be educated. We all want to be able to have community. We all want to be able to know where our food is coming from. We all want shelter. We want the same things. We are all the same. Don't listen to the news that drives us apart and tells us that we're different. We're not. We're the same. And that is what will bring us together. To trust each other, you know? And don't sit on the, you know, we're in an age now of polarization, you know, where it's like the really noisy ends of the spectrum of getting a conversation in. And what I would say is, you know, we got to have conversations. We can't shout at each other anymore. We need to talk to each other, you know? And if we can talk with each other, at each other, is off the table now. We've got to talk with each other, to each other, as humans, all the same. Then we can start to really make progress on this planet. It's so important, because we're right at that pinnacle point where it could go the other way.
You know, you have the vibe and the calmness that when we started the conversation, I was like this, and now I'm listening to you with all my pleasure. It's your first time in Greece?
No. I've found myself, you know, in Greece many times. I think as a kid, I was thinking in my head as growing up, I was going to probably say some inappropriate stories of my times in Greece, but it's one of the most incredible places that, you know, there's something about the color of the ocean and the way it meets the land and the smell of the pine, and, you know, when you go down those dusty roads and you jump into that crystal clear ocean, it holds an incredible part in my soul. And I'll never forget the first time I ate uni, you know, it was here, like diving down, someone grabbed this thing and I was like, whoa, I shouldn't touch that. Like, no, watch this. Ate it and I was like, wow, we should definitely touch that, you know, and just how beautiful this country is. And, you know, and you're in the center of this world, if you look at a map almost, right? You know what I mean? the role that you guys play and the knowledge and the history of this culture is deep. And a lot of lessons. And there's going to be a lot of change, right, in this part of the world when you look at the climate and you look at what's going on. You know, a huge movement of people, right? I mean, look at just what's happened in the US in the last 2 weeks in Florida.
Yes, with a hurricane.
And at some point you go, I can't live there anymore. So what do? Climate refugees is a real thing. Movement of people is a real thing. And so we've got to learn how to love our neighbors, even if they don't look like us, sound like us, talk like us. Because again, they want the same things that we do. And that's going to be a changing planet.
So our conference that we say is not about, it's about luxury tourism, but at this point, not only expensive hotels, you see, yachting or luxury travel are considered luxury for us. For us, luxury tourism means respecting nature, local gastronomy, clean air that we say before, and blue seas. So we would like you to be an ambassador in our effort and to create the ideal conditions for our tourism, always with full respect for our environment. You know, I cannot speak this word. It's a very great pleasure that you have been today with us. An honor for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. I agree.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ όλους για την πρώτη μέρα του συνεδρίου. Νομίζω ότι μας συνεπήρε με την ομιλία του και πραγματικά νιώθω πολύ περήφανη γι' αυτό. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything.